Hello everyone, myself Dr. Sandeshri, postgraduate student from the Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics. In this video, I would like to discuss about a restorative material that is most popular in the current times. As we all know, we, the dentists, were created to create beautiful smiles, and building beautiful smiles with crowns never go outdated. Years and years ago, the number of options for the replacement with crowns were barely few for the dentist, that for aesthetic concern, PFM was the only choice, and for strength concern, the alloy-based crowns were the only choice. But then, the need for a strong crown with very good aesthetics has come. And when fast forwarded to today, we have numerous metal-free ceramic restorative materials that rival the strength of alloy-based restorations of the past times while providing amazingly natural aesthetics. So let us now begin our journey to this new level of interest in the current dental practice. That is the metal-free ceramics. And in this journey, we are going to learn about what is a ceramic, what is it composed of, how is it manufactured, why there is a shift to metal-free ceramics and how this has been done, and what are the recent innovations in this restorative material. The word ceramic is derived from the Greek word keramos, which means burnt stuff. Traditionally, these ceramics were known as porcelain, which is an age-old material used for making tableware, pottery, decorative objects, etc. And this porcelain was introduced into the field of dentistry by Dr. Alexis in the 18th century. He created a complete set of dentures using porcelain. In late 1800s, the first metal ceramic crown called as the Richmond crown was introduced. In 1903, Land introduced the making of porcelain jacket crowns, and the concept of ceramic veneering was introduced by Dr. Pincus in 1938. For us to understand different modifications and advancements in these ceramics, we need to know the basic composition of these and how they are manufactured. So, how do the ceramics are manufactured? The porcelain powder should be mixed with liquid and made into a plastic mass. This plastic mass is then fired in furnace. The hot mass after firing is then subjected to a procedure called as quenching. Quenching is nothing but rapid cooling. Whenever a hot mass is rapidly cooled, it results in the formation of surface crackling, right? In the same way, this quenching results in the formation of a solid mass with more number of surface cracks. The product is called as frit and the process is called as fritting. This frit is then ground into the fine powder. This powder is then mixed with liquid and made into a plastic mass. The formed plastic mass is then adapted onto the die. That is, after tooth preparation, the impressions are made and die is fabricated, over which the porcelain plastic mass is adapted and then subjected to a process called condensation. Condensation can be achieved by ultrasonic vibration, spatulation, brushing, etc. Condensation is a process of drying excess water and making the particles stay together. That is, whenever you tap it or vibrate it, the excess water in the plastic mass will come over the surface, which can be blotted. And it also results in the particles to settle down. After condensation, we are going to fire it. Whenever you fire it, the fusion of particles occur, resulting in a formation of a rigid solid mass. During firing, the water and the plastic mass is evaporated, resulting in some amount of shrinkage, which is called as your firing shrinkage. Proper condensation will result in elimination of excess water. That is how it is going to reduce the firing shrinkage and also decreases the porosity. After firing, it is then cooled slowly and the required stain or glaze is added. This is the process how a ceramic crown is fabricated. And the firing process, which is done during the fabrication of ceramic crowns, is then classified into three stages. That is your low bisque, medium bisque and high bisque. In low bisque, the grains of porcelain start to soften and coalesce at the contact points, whereas in high bisque, complete coalescing is seen. As there is complete cohesion, the porosity will be absent, the shrinkage will be maximum, the strength is maximum, and the color and translucency is also established. Whereas in the low bisque stage, as there is an incomplete cohesion, the surface remains highly porous, the shrinkage is minimal, the strength is less, and the color and translucency is also not established. So now let us go in detail what actually this porcelain powder is made up of. Silica, one of the important component of the ceramics. This silica is available in two forms. One is crystalline form and the another is non-crystalline form. The crystalline forms of silica are quartz, tridymite and cristobalite. This crystalline form is usually used in the manufacture of dental cements, investment materials and composites. The strength of this crystalline form of silica is low that it cannot be used in manufacture of ceramics. But there is one advantage with this crystalline form, that is its low fusion temperature. The non-crystalline form of silica is fused silica. This fused silica is really strong in nature, which provides the advantage of strength for its use in ceramics. The strength of this silica is due to the presence of silica tetrahydrate, in which the silicon ion is going to get bounded with the 4 oxygen atoms, resulting in the formation of a three-dimensional structure. The bonds that are present between these are both ionic and covalent in nature and are really very strong. The presence of these stable bonds makes the fusion temperature of the silica very high, because the temperature required to break these bonds is very high and cannot be attained in the dental labs. So, in order to reduce the fusion temperature of the silica, we are going to add certain components to it. They are nothing but glass modifiers. These glass modifiers are basically the oxides of sodium, potassium and calcium. So, how do they reduce fusion temperature? These metal ions interact with the oxygen ions on the silica tetrahydrate and converts the three-dimensional network into linear chains, which will be able to move easily at lower temperatures. Thus, these glass modifiers contribute in decreased fusion temperature and increased flow. But whenever we think of fusion temperature of ceramics, it stands somewhere around 1300 degrees, 800 degrees like that, right? So why don't you think of addition of more amount of modifiers? No, because more addition of modifiers results in more fluidity and also makes it susceptible to oral fluids, which causes leaching out the most important ingredients out of the ceramics. That will decrease its strength and durability too. And this is also going to result in something called as a devitrification. And this devitrification is the process of crystallization in a formerly crystal-free glass, which is going to result in increased opacity of the glass, whereas lower modifiers make the fusion temperature of the silica high. So always a balance should be there in its addition, not too low, not too many. So with the addition of glass modifiers, the fusion temperature of the silica decreases. Based on the fusion temperature, the ceramics are classified as high fusing, medium fusing, low fusing and ultra low fusing. The fusion temperature of this high fusing is greater than 1300 degrees centigrade, whereas medium fusing is 1100 to 1300. Low fusing is 850 to 1100 and ultra low is less than 850 degrees centigrade. The high fusing and medium fusing are used in the manufacture of the denture teeth, whereas low fusing and ultra low fusing are used in the manufacture of crowns and bridges and ceramic veneers. Moving on to the next component, that is feldspar. This feldspar is a naturally occurring component which contains potash, soda and alumina. This feldspar has a very important property called as incongruent melting. So what is incongruent melting? Whenever a material is melted, it results in the formation of a liquid and crystalline material. So when this feldspar is mixed with water and fire, it results in the formation of a glass phase, which acts as the liquid phase, and lucite, which is the crystalline material. This glass phase acts as a liquid and allows the silica particles to flow within it and fuse together. This process of fusion of multiple silica particles together is called as your liquid phase sintering. And the crystalline material that is formed is lucite, which is highly aesthetic and has high coefficient of thermal expansion. And the next component we have is boric oxide. This boric oxide forms a separate lattice and interrupt more rigid silica, thus acting as glass modifier, decreasing the viscosity. And then we are going to add certain metal oxides as color pigments to bring the desired shade to the ceramics, such as addition of copper oxide gives green color, titanium oxide gives yellow, manganese oxide gives lavender, cobalt oxide gives blue and iron oxide gives brown color. And then we need some material which binds all these components. That is your kaolin, which acts as a binder. With all these components, we have got some ceramic material which is called feldspathic porcelain. And this remains the paradigm for the recent ceramics. This feldspathic porcelain have certain excellent properties such as aesthetics, insulating capacity, inertness in the oral cavity and excellent biocompatibility. But it also has few limitations, such as low tensile strength which made the crown brittle. The compressive strength of this porcelain is very high, but due to its low tensile strength, whenever a crown is given which is made up of this material, it eventually resulted in fracture. In order to overcome these fractures, certain modifications are done. One amongst is the PFM crowns. In these PFM crowns, there is a metal core over which a layer of feldspathic porcelain is veneered. This metal core provided sufficient strength to prevent fracture of ceramic. But in fabrication of PFM crown, more amount of tooth reduction is needed to accommodate both metal and ceramic, which affected the long-term strength of the tooth. And there is also another drawback with these metal ceramic crowns, that is bond failure. Before going in detail into bond failure, let us know what actually the bond between the metal and ceramic is. The bond between the metal and ceramic is not just mechanical but also chemical in nature. This is formed between the oxide layer of the metal and the metal oxides of the ceramics. And the oxide layer of the metal is formed by addition of small amount of base metal alloys like iron, tin and indium that will result in the formation of bond with the ceramics. So going in detail into the bond failure, this bond failure is of three types, that is your static fracture, cohesive fracture and adhesive failure. This static fracture and cohesive fracture occurs in the ceramic itself, where in the static fracture the porcelain remains intact, whereas in the cohesive fracture you will see something called as your ceramic chipping off. Whereas this adhesive failure occurs at the metal ceramic interface, resulting in the exposure of the metal. These metal ceramics are slightly opaque in nature when compared to the adjacent natural teeth, and these also resulted in the exposure of thin metal at the cervical gingival margin, which resulted in the compromised aesthetics. Due to these drawbacks, we require some material over these metal ceramics, which resulted in the shift to metal-free ceramics. So, what actually we need is a crown with exceptional aesthetics with enhanced mechanical properties. That is, we need ceramics which are aesthetic like feldspathic porcelain. We need ceramics which are not brittle like feldspathic porcelain. Finally, the one which is not just aesthetic but also considerably strong. And this can be achieved by a process called strengthening. Before we go in detail with strengthening of the ceramics, we need to know certain things. Like when the porcelain is fired and cooled, it results in the formation of minute cracks or scratches on the surface of the ceramics. These cracks or scratches act as sharp notches, and when the stress concentration occurs at the tip of these minute cracks or scratches, the bonds at the notch tip starts breaking and initiates the crack formation. And the crack will propagate until it passes entirely through the material, or it meets another crack or a pore or a crystalline material. So we need to strengthen the ceramics in such a way that it prevents this crack initiation and propagation. This strengthening of ceramics can be achieved by development of residual compressive stresses, reduction of crack, interruption of crack propagation and design modification. This reduction of crack is done by a procedure called as your glazing, wherein you are going to reduce the crack which is already present. And this interruption of crack propagation can be done by dispersion of crystalline phase and transformation toughening, wherein you are going to add a material which doesn't allow the crack to pass through it. And coming to the design modification, you are modify your designing such a way that the tensile stresses acting on the ceramics will be minimized. So coming to the development of residual compressive stresses, imagine this is a porcelain bar and the triangular defect depicts the crack. Whenever the tensile forces and the bending forces which are depicted in these green arrows act on the material, it will result in widening and opening up of the crack. With the introduction of these compressive stresses, the tensile stresses have to overcome these compressive stresses first before initiation or propagation of the crack. And these compressive stresses which act in opposite direction also compresses the crack, preventing its further propagation. And these compressive stresses can be introduced into the material by chemical tempering, thermal tempering and coefficient of thermal expansion mismatch. Coming to the chemical tempering, this chemical tempering is also called as ion exchange. In ion exchange or chemical tempering, the smaller size sodium ions are exchanged with the larger size potassium ions. These potassium ions are 35% larger than the sodium ions, and these larger potassium ions get squeezed in the vacancies which are created by the sodium ion efflux. With this squeezing of the potassium ions, it results in introduction of some amount of stresses into the material. And this can be brought about by placing this in potassium nitrate salt bath at 400 degrees centigrade for 4 hours. So moving on to the thermal tempering, the porcelain is heated and this heated porcelain is subjected to quenching. Quenching is nothing but a rapid cooling which will make the outer layer of the porcelain rigid, whereas the core remains hot and cools down slowly. During cooling it tries to shrink, but as the outer layer is rigid it results in introduction of some amount of stresses. Then moving on to the coefficient of thermal expansion mismatch. This is usually followed for a PFM crown. The metal is chosen in such a way that it has more coefficient of thermal expansion resulting in more shrinkage than the ceramic. This increase in shrinkage will put the ceramics under compression that will eventually compress the crack. Moving on to the next method, that is reduction of crack. As already discussed, we'll have a crack here, and in this procedure we are just going to reduce the surface crack, and this can be accomplished by a procedure called glazing, and this glazing is of two types, that is auto glaze and add-on glaze. In auto glaze, no special material is added over. It involves controlled heating of the porcelain such that the top layer selectively melts and fuses and seals the crack on the surface. In add-on glaze, we are going to add glaze material which is nothing but the ceramics with lot of glass modifiers to it to increase in the flow and to decrease the fusion temperature. Due to this more number of glass modifiers, when it is heated to a temperature lower than the fusion temperature, the material flows and seals the crack. Always auto glaze is better when compared to that of the add-on glaze because we are not adding any other material, we are using the same material and the glaze produced by it remains quite durable. Then moving on to the next method, that is interruption of crack propagation, and this can be discussed under two headings, that is the dispersion of crystalline phase and transformation toughening. In dispersion of crystalline phase, you are going to add a crystalline material which is considerably strong that doesn't allow the crack to propagate to it, and here alumina, which is a crystalline material, is added to the porcelain, and this alumina is a tough material and that doesn't allow the crack to pass through it. This addition of alumina to the feldspathic porcelain resulted in the development of your aluminous porcelain, in which the deeper layer will be aluminous porcelain and the top layer will be feldspathic porcelain. Then the next method we have is transformation toughening. Here partially stabilized zirconia is dispersed into the glass phase of the porcelain. This partially stabilized zirconia is made by addition of yttria to the zirconia. This yttria added partially stabilized zirconia is usually in the tetragonal form. Under stress, this will get converted to the stable monoclinic form, which is 5% larger in volume, and this is called as stress induced phase transformation. This monoclinic form, which is larger than the tetragonal form, will try to compress and prevent the crack propagation. In this diagram, we can see a crack which is initiated, and this is all the unstable tetragonal form. This crack will act as the stress inducer. Under the stress, this unstable tetragonal form is going to get converted in the monoclinic form. As already discussed, this monoclinic form, which is 5% large in volume, will eventually try to compress and prevent its propagation. This addition of zirconia to the porcelain resulted in the formulation of zirconia based ceramics. But one of the drawbacks with the ceramics is its high abrasion resistance, which will cause abrasion of the opposing natural teeth. Then the last method we have is design modification. The design should be modified in such a way that it decreases the tensile stresses and it should also decrease the stress raises. The decrease in tensile stresses can be achieved by avoiding the stress concentration at the sharp angles. We should also see that there should be no marked change in thickness, and using a metal core will also help in achieving so. And any abrupt change in the shape or thickness of the ceramic, or creases or folds of the platinum foil, or small particle of the porcelain along the internal margin will act as stress raisers that has to be prevented in order to prevent the fracture. Apart from this regular strengthening process, there are also certain improvements made that resulted in the recent advances in ceramics. The improvements that are made are discussed under three headings. The first one is Improvements in the substructure. Substructure is nothing but the core of the crown. The examples are reinforced core ceramics, resin bonded ceramics and metal ceramics. Then the second one we have is improvements in the composition. The examples are particle filled glass ceramics, predominantly glass based ceramics and polycrystalline ceramics. Then the improvements are made in the processing techniques. The examples are conventional sintered ceramics, castable ceramics, pressable ceramics, slip cast ceramics and machinable ceramics. Moving on to the first one, that is advances with improvement in the substructure. The examples are resin bonded ceramics, metal ceramics, reinforced core ceramics. Coming to this resin bonded ceramics, these resin bonded ceramics directly bond to the tooth and becomes integral part of the tooth. And then reinforced core ceramic, one of the example is alumina reinforced ceramics, where 40 to 50% of alumina is added to the feldspathic porcelain. And as already discussed, this alumina is a strong crystalline material which doesn't allow the crack to propagate through it. And in this same image, we can see these alumina particles dispersed within the porcelain, and this dispersion resulted in the alumina reinforced ceramics, which was introduced by Mecklin in 1960. These alumina reinforced ceramics are used for the restoration in anterior teeth and cannot be used for the restorations in posterior teeth because of its strength concern. Then the improvements are made in the composition. First is predominantly glass. Here the matrix is aluminosilicate glass and contain lucite crystals embedded in the matrix. The examples are IPS Empress and Optic. These examples ought to be remembered for NEET entrance examination. And then we have particle fill, in which the lithium and lanthanum 30% are added to the glass matrix, whereas the 70% are your fillers. Empress 2 is the example. Then we have polycrystalline ceramic. It consists of the small grains that grow together during firing. Porcera and lava are the examples. Then coming into the recent advances with improvements in the processing techniques, the first is sintered ceramics. In this kind of ceramics, the powder particles are compacted into a solid mass, and this compaction is done by heat or pressure without melting up to the point of liquefaction. That is, we have porcelain powder particles here, and when heat or pressure is applied, the adjacent powder particles fuse with each other at one end, and this serves as bond between the powder particles, resulting in the formation of a solid mass. The examples are Optic HSP and Mires 2. Then moving on to the castable ceramics, this is done in a fashion similar to the conventional lost wax technique, where a die is prepared from an impression and a wax pattern is fabricated, and this wax pattern is then invested. This is then subjected to the burn-out procedure and followed by loading in a centrifugal casting machine. The ceramic blocks are then loaded in the crucibles and the casting procedure is executed. The examples are Dicor and Sarapur. Coming to the pressable ceramics, here you will have a wax pattern, and this wax pattern is attached to the sprue former, and this is invested in the phosphate bond investment. Later, the burnout procedure is carried out and that created this mold space. Then the sprue former and casting ring is removed and this investment is placed in a ceramic hot pressing machine. This machine will have a moving piston which moves the hot ceramic blocks into the mold space. That resulted in the formulation of your ceramic crown. The examples are IPS Empress 2 and Finest Pressable. Coming to the slip cast ceramics, this technique involves the condensation of aqueous porcelain slip over the refractory dye material. This dye absorbs water from the slip through capillary action and resulting in the formation of microporosity. And then this is fired at a temperature of 1120 degrees for 10 hours to obtain an opaque porous core. Later, the lanthanum powder is added in thin sections and is fired at 110 degrees centigrade for 4 hours, during which the lanthanum glass infiltrates the opaque porous core and the strength of the core is increased by 20 times, over which a layer of ceramic is veneered. The examples are Inceram Spinel, Inceram Alumina and Inceram Zirconia. Then coming to the last one, that is machinable ceramics, CAD-CAM. CAD-CAM, that is computer aided designing and computer aided manufacturing. The basic steps involved in this CAD-CAM are data acquisition, data processing and model fabrication. The data acquisition can be done through optical modeling, laser scanning, CT, MRI and digital photographs. and this data is processed to obtain a CAD model, and based on this CAD model, the crown is obtained through additive or subtractive manufacturing. And this fabrication or milling is done through additive or subtractive process. In additive technology, the crown is made by adding up the porcelain powder particles layer by layer successively. For each of material, the powder material and liquid material are added and fused successively to form the final shape. Whereas coming to the subtractive approach, it is usually accomplished by computerized milling devices which are numerically controlled. This is something similar to your carving, wherein you are going to eliminate the excess material, resulting in the formation of your final shape. Coming to the examples of fully sintered or Cerac and Bruxelles, whereas partially sintered is zircon, lava and Emax. Moving on to the copy milling, a die is made from the impression and a pattern is made using conventional technique. The stylus of this milling machine will touch and sense the shape of the pattern, and these details will be transferred to the milling unit such that the crown will be milled from a prefabricated porcelain blank. And the workflow of a CAD/CAM milled crown be like: the patient walks in, tooth preparation is done, and a physical impression is made, and it is scanned through an intraoral scanner, and this digital record is transferred to the lab, and based on these details the crown is milled accordingly. Here are the few important properties of all ceramic crowns. This ceramics is a rapidly evolving material. There are a lot of changes that happen and still happening in this material, which we have discussed in the above presentation. To conclude, when the ceramics were newly developed, that is in the past, the decision of which crown has to be given depended on what has to be sacrificed. That is, either the strength or longevity or aesthetics has to be sacrificed. But today, the practitioners have the options of placing ceramic restorations without any compromise in the strength, also meeting the unrealistic demands of the patient. Because the practitioners today have bid farewell to traditional go-to choices. There will always be few areas in every topic that you need to pen down for a quick reference before the exam. And these points won't just assist you with creating confidence in your own difficult work, but also additionally help to boost your certainty level in competitive examinations. And when preparing the ceramics topic, please don't forget to look into fritting, history of ceramics, color of metallic oxides, particle size and porosity in relation to stages of firing, bond failures, classification of ceramics, strengthening of ceramics, examples of various recent advances in ceramics. Hope you guys find this video helpful. Thank you for watching.